Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, November 3rd live stream for studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. I'm founder of Student Loan Justice. We are the oldest, largest, and in many ways only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. So I'm going to save the spiel. We've got a lot to cover today. Let's see. Two things going on right now. Number one, we saw Senators Patty Murray, Dick Durbin, a couple other guys put out a new repayment plan proposal for the federal student loan program. It involves combining all the various income contingent, income-based repayment programs all into one. And you know what, guys? I'm not even going to say any more than that about this, as far as the specifics of this plan goes. Because, guys, we've seen this movie before. We've seen pay, P-A-Y-E, pay as you earn. We've seen repay, revised pay as you earn. We've seen IBR. We've seen ICR. We've seen any number, an alphabet soup of student loan repayment programs. And they all are like, yeah, pay X percent of your income if you earn X percent of the poverty level in 20 years, we'll forgive your loans. Duh. And guys, I'm done with it. I'm done. It's not even worth getting into the specifics of this plan. And it's only a proposal, by the way. This lending system has failed. Apparently, the people in Washington, D.C. haven't gotten the memo yet. But even before COVID, 50%, over half of all borrowers were not paying on their loans. Today, almost nobody is paying on their loans because of the pandemic. Come February 1st, when and if the Biden administration tries to turn back on this lending program, which at this point is in full stage rigor mortis, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. This lending system is failed by all rational metrics, and the people in Washington can concoct yet another repayment program, but that doesn't change the larger truth that this lending system is done, folks. It's toast. By all rational metrics, 80% of all federal student loan borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. Before the pandemic, as I said, half were not paying, 30% were paying and paying and paying, and their loan balances were going up. We were looking at a default rate pre-pandemic of like 65, 70, 75%. So by comparison, the default rate for subprime home mortgages, yeah, that was 20%. So we are in uncharted fail territory here for this federal lending program. Quite frankly, President Trump should have just canceled all of the loans when the pandemic first hit. It is the cheapest and easiest way to stimulate the economy. The president, meaning then President Trump, now President Biden, unlike all the other fiscal stimulus that we've seen during this pandemic, the PPP loans, which don't need to be repaid, by the way, and all the other trillions of dollars we threw out in stimulus, all that stuff added to the national debt. It required money to be drawn from the Treasury. It required somehow cutting other programs or raising taxes or somehow paying for that stimulus. The loans can be canceled without adding a dime to the national debt, without needing a penny from the Treasury. So quite frankly, President Trump, biggest mistake of his presidency, quite frankly. He could have, but he did not cancel the loans. So too with President Biden. I have to say, this is shaping up to look like one of the largest mistakes of his presidency, of his nascent presidency. So yeah, guys, I'm not even going to talk about this plan more than I already have, but to say that we should probably just skip all the chit-chat at this point and just go directly to throwing this proposal onto the scrap heap of stupid policy ideas that are doomed to fail. And I really don't even want to say anything more than that. So there's another piece of, hey, Lisa, how are you doing? So there's another piece of news. Let me see. Let me back up a little bit. So right after our petition calling for the cancellation of student loans by executive order, which we started March 2020, right after we started getting, I should say before we started this petition, like well before, in August of 2019, we did an interview with Vice Magazine asking the question if the president can actually even cancel loans. Well, we realized in doing that interview with Vice News that indeed the president could do it. So we started the petition a few months later when the pandemic hit, and I've never had any doubt. We've looked very carefully at the law, and the law is unambiguous and clear that the president and the secretary do have the power to broadly cancel federally owned student loans. They just do. The power was given to them with the Higher Education Act of 1965, and in fact, it was actually a public law going back to the late 50s, believe it or not. So the president does have the power. This has become an issue now since our petition started rocking, and the whole concept of canceling student loans by executive order has taken on a life of its own, with people like Senators Schumer and Warren embracing the concept in 2020. And right now, it's basically at the top of the news. So there's a lot of news right now where when Biden first first of all, in the waning days of the Trump presidency, when this concept was really had a head of steam for the first time ever, somewhat thanks to us, one of the Education Department lawyers, Reed Rubenstein, published a memo saying that no, the president does not have the authority, or the secretary, to cancel student loans. Well, that memo was very quickly, first of all, it was torn to shreds by people far smarter than I, people like David Day and others. It was ripped to shreds. It was taken down off of the Department of Education website. And shortly after Biden took office, yeah, we all know the story there. Biden backslid on his campaign promises. And all of a sudden he was like, oh, I don't think I have the power. And then there's been a big debate over this memo that President Biden produced to answer the question of whether indeed the president and secretary do have the power to cancel loans or not. So you're probably seeing that in the news, and it seems like it's a big deal. I actually don't think it's that. It's kind of I have to say it's kind of a sideshow. I mean, we've been very confident the president has that power. The law is clear. I urge you all to read it. It's not ambiguous at all. And if you read like that Reed Rubenstein memo, which is no longer available because they took it down, because quite frankly, I think they were ashamed and embarrassed to put that sort of nonsense argument out there. You can see how ridiculously weak the counter argument is. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is that everybody in Washington, D.C. knows that the president and the secretary do have the power to cancel loans. The only question is the politics, what they want to do. What they want to do is really, it's a political question. I don't see it really as even a legal question because the law is clear. So, apparently the memo that Biden ordered apparently was in existence, and I've looked at the email logs from the FOIA that the Debt Collective did, and yeah, it looks like they were working on a memo. It looks like they had basically finished the memo, still in draft form. I don't really see why that's even really too newsworthy. So I don't really have a whole lot more to say about that. Memo or no memo, the memo that everybody in Washington, D.C. should be getting is the fact that the entire lending system is now catastrophically failed by all measures and metrics. Like, that's the memo they haven't gotten that they need to get. So we'll see where that little drama leads us. Probably nowhere, but whatever. It doesn't matter. The president does have the power, and it's really only a matter of him deciding to exercise that power. As I said in that Vice News article, and by the way, I did this is just my own tooting my own horn a little bit. I did a news search for media articles that were written about student loan cancellation and by executive order. And the very first ever media story that I could find, at least on the Google News search, was this piece in August 2019 by Ali Conti, who put the question to us. So yeah, guys, we got this. And remember, No matter what, no matter how the Biden administration chooses, and it is a choice, no matter how they choose to answer that question, the lending system is still toast, no matter what. Like, that is the much larger reality that everybody needs to wrap their minds around. Hey, I see we have a few comments here. Lisa and Michael are with us, I see. Glad you were able to find us. I know that our live streams are becoming harder and harder to find when they're actually going on, so I apologize for that. So Lisa asks, Alan, what is your take on why not a single person in the Biden administration has even acknowledged the leaked memo? Yeah, they play things pretty tight to the vest, Lisa. That's always been true. I guess maybe a bigger point that I'll make here is that, but for a few people, the Department of Education are not good people, guys. The unelected, unappointed bureaucrats that essentially run that place, they do not want to cancel loans. I mean, quite frankly, I think if they are going to cancel loans, they want to be paid to cancel loans. And that means Congress needs to pass a very expensive bill like Biden has been floating lately, this $10,000 nonsense. They want the taxpayers to give them $1 for every dollar in student loans that they cancel. They don't want to simply cancel the debt and write a line through it like what we are proposing by executive order, because nobody in Washington, D.C. gets paid that way. So I think they are indeed being very tight-lipped about it. It's maybe a little bit more of a nuance as well, too, though, Lisa, because on the one hand, they don't want to cancel loans by executive order, but on the other hand, they pretty much know and they realize that that is a power that they may very well need at some point down the road. So they don't want to close that avenue down, because that could get just extraordinarily, disgustingly ugly. But whatever, I'm past the point of caring what happens in the little dark alleys and secret handshake land of Washington, D.C. I don't care. I don't. Because the larger truth is that the lending system is toast, ladies and gentlemen. In my humble opinion, nobody should ever pay another dollar back on their federal student loans. It's, at what point are you feeding the beast? And just the reality is that come February 1st, if and when they try and turn this lending system back on, very few people are going to resume paying. Most people won't even be able to in the first place, but I think a growing percentage, probably 20, 25%, they're just not going to pay because they're done. They've been screwed too much. They've already paid many times, many multiples of what they already borrowed, and they smell the con. They realize they're in the vice grip, and they're just not going to pay, and they shouldn't. This is a beast that needs to be killed, not fed. So that's my editorial opinion there. So Lisa also says their lack of response both to Ilhan Omar's date ultimatum, October 22nd, and again to the leaked memo suggests a deep patronization of the people. Well, yeah, that's clearly true, Lisa. People in Washington, D.C. generally, they think that they are insulated. They're sort of the elitist power people in Washington, D.C. They fancy themselves superior to the rabble, which they consider us to be. And, the arrogance of it all is just disgusting. And the true lack of esteem they hold their fellow countrymen in is... I try not to think about it too much because it makes blood shoot out of my eyes. But I think the deeper truth is that these people run and hide every time we, for example, try to have a good public exchange with them. So they sort of put on these airs of arrogance, but I think even below that is the fact that they know that we will destroy them in any logic-based, good-faith argument. I mean, there is no defending this unconstitutional predatory lending system. The data is in. And so not only do they sort of resent and despise us, I think they also are afraid of us. So there's that. So the memo, I don't know, who knows, who cares? Our marching orders are very clear, folks. As a political reality right now, we got to push Biden. We've got to push Biden. He's a politician. He was back in Iowa when I was following him around. he was a million miles further away than he is today from student loan cancellation and also from bankruptcy. Maybe the most important thing I'll say to you guys tonight is, as a practical matter, I think that in order to get Biden to actually meaningfully cancel loans, we have got to get the threat of bankruptcy back on our side. Let me say that again. We've got to get the threat of bankruptcy returned to us as the founders intended. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. I know. And nobody here does. Nobody wants to or even intends to, I think. But the founding fathers knew that the dangers of lending tyranny were so compelling that they called for uniform bankruptcy laws. They called for bankruptcy rights in the Constitution. Not the Bill of Rights, in the body of the Constitution. And they called for it ahead of the power to declare war and raise an army. And this student loan, this unique student loan violation of their wisdom, proves their wisdom in spades. You know, people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, others, founders, they were being wrecked by debt to the king, to the king's men, British banks, British merchants, etc. They were very afraid of the people being conquered and enslaved by debt. So they called for uniform bankruptcy laws, ahead of the power to declare war, ahead of the power to raise an army, ahead of the power to create a judiciary, ahead of the power to coin currency and build a navy, and like a couple other very important things. So, and there's a good reason for that, guys. The people have got to have the threat of bankruptcy back on their side in order to keep the lending system behaving in a fair and good-faithed manner. I mean, our argument is so sledgehammer strong, guys. I'm serious. Everywhere we go, the bad guys, they run and hide. They run. They scurry like cockroaches when the light is turned on. That's how strong our argument is. But right now, the political reality is, I am very worried that we're going to see Joe Biden, the horns are going to come out, the confetti, the dancing girls, the parade, all that stuff. And Joe Biden's going to say, okay, finally, I am going to cancel up to $50,000 in student loans. And you know what's going to actually happen? Nothing, or almost nothing, for almost everyone. They said up to $50,000. That could mean anything. And if the unelected people at the Department of Education have their way, it will mean almost nothing for almost everyone. We've seen this movie before, folks, and I could go on for quite a while talking about how even the so-called good guys, the so-called student advocacy groups, have torpedoed, they have sabotaged the push for the return of constitutional bankruptcy protections in favor of some flavor or another of loan repayment program, loan cancellation program. Like the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is a prime example. We were fighting for bankruptcy, and some student loan advocacy groups came up to us and they go, hey, please stop fighting for bankruptcy because we've got these great new cancellation programs we're going to push. Public Service Loan Forgiveness, income-based repayment. Well, how did that work out? Lisa can tell you. It's a joke. And maybe finally we'll actually see some public service loan forgiveness start to happen. Now that we have a new administration, we have a couple of good people in the Department of Education, people like Richard Cordray and James Cavall, Toby Merrill. But guys, that's 3 people. And the vast majority of the people, the corporate culture, and it is a corporate culture inside the Department of Education, are not on our side, and they will do everything they can do to undermine any people there, including their leaders, including their bosses like James, Richard, and Toby, in order to keep this lending scam going against us. And I can tell you, the one thing that those people fear is us getting out the threat of bankruptcy back. Like, as long as bankruptcy's gone, we're going to see nonsense. We're going to see nonsense loan cancellation. We've seen it too many times. Take my word for it. However, on the other hand, if bankruptcy were returned to student loans tomorrow, the threat of bankruptcy, all of a sudden the game would change overnight. Joe Biden would suddenly be like, okay, shit, I actually have to cancel loans now, because if I don't cancel loans, 10, 15, 20 million people are going to overwhelm the bankruptcy courts to the point of seizure. So all of a sudden, loans start getting meaningfully canceled when bankruptcy is returned. I don't see that happening unless and until bankruptcy is returned, folks. I don't. So there's a bill, S-2598, in the Senate. We've got to fight very hard for it. And towards that end, the last thing I will ask you to do tonight, please go to our website, go to our daily updates, go to our daily, just look down, up and down those updates, and you will see all kinds of daily actions. And for the past month or so, fully half or more of those daily actions have involved twittering the mess out of various key legislators on bankruptcy. That's how important bankruptcy is, guys. We need you to do those actions. You know, we may seem like I really don't know what people think about this group. I mean, we have over 1 million people on our petition. That's definitely something. But whatever you may think about this group will get absolutely not one thing done until you sitting there help us. That's always been true. Don't think because we have 1 million people that somebody else is going to pull your weight for you. That never, ever, ever, ever works. It never happens. You've got to own this problem because these are your loans and this is your problem. We've been doing this for 16 years. I don't want to be doing this into our 17th year. I don't. I want these loans gone. And if we can get bankruptcy returned tomorrow, I think these loans will probably be gone within about 6 months or a year. Certainly for all the people who have been hurt the worst. Of that, I have no doubt. So, hey, Lisa also says, she said that. Lisa also says the lack of transparency, even basic respect to respond to this question, suggests that they would rather lose every future election than cancel the loans. Lisa, I don't get it either. There's 45 million voters in the country with federal student loans. 80% of them, like 38 million people, were never going to be able to repay their loans even before the pandemic. That is damned near enough people to elect a president outright. Like, this last election was pretty high. I think the winner got like 80 million votes, but usually it's like 65, 63 million votes. I don't understand the political calculus that's going on there, Lisa. Maybe you would know better than I, but I don't see anything that the Biden administration is doing right now which is helping their cause. You know, they just blatantly went back on their word. And you know, like I said, we're pushing Republicans, and anybody who goes and looks at our daily actions will see that we are pushing Republicans as hard as we are pushing Democrats. We are a fiercely nonpartisan group. So whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're very, very, very welcome here. We honestly pretty much hate both parties at this point because we've seen how our issue has gotten shoved into the partisan cracks. And it shouldn't be that way. The Senate bill, Lisa, is S-2598. Currently, we have more Republican senators co-sponsoring that bill than Democrats, which is really pretty crazy. I mean, we are a nonpartisan group fiercely, but we have to acknowledge all the partisan stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And the fact of the matter is that historically, Republicans have tended to oppose us, certainly oppose, and today even oppose student loan bankruptcy or student loan cancellation, and up till now oppose student loan bankruptcy. But I think that's changing. I think the Republicans are finally coming around now. And they should, because their ass is on the line. They're starting to lose really critical states like Georgia on the back of the because they are fighting for the swamp over their people. This is not a partisan issue, guys. You know, a lot of people like to say that, cancel student loans. Yeah, it's a giveaway to these liberal elites. These people who overborrowed to study underwater basket weaving or LGBTQ studies at some private college. That's nonsense, guys. The people who have student loans are, first of all, over half of them are over the age of 35. In fact, there are more people over the age of 50 with student loans than under the age of 25. And the older group in both cases owes far more than the younger group, despite having borrowed far less. 40% of all student loan borrowers, more than 40%, never graduated. So they're working in Starbucks or the trades or whatever you want to point your finger. They did not graduate. They are not elite. They are not entitled, and they probably aren't liberal. My best estimate is that 55% of all student loan borrowers identify politically as being either independent or Republican. So this is not a liberal elite thing, and that's our biggest challenge in the zeitgeist, is convincing people the reality of this lending system. Liberal elites, like sort of by definition, they don't even get student loans. Like a ton of the people with student loans, as I said, 40% never graduated. A ton of them went to trade schools, community colleges. These are not your liberal elites. They just are not. And by the way, the most successful student loan borrowers, they tend to refinance their loans out of the federal program. So they will not benefit by bankruptcy being returned federal student loans. They will not benefit. It's a strange intonation, I know, but they will not benefit from student loan cancellation, because the president can only cancel federally owned student loans. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. I've gone a little bit long. Michael Jacobs gave Monderi Jones several calls over a year and a half. I don't understand what your fascination is with Monderi Jones, Michael. I don't. He's a smart guy, a Harvard guy, African-American congressman from New York. I've never seen him say anything super strong on the student loan issue. But, my philosophy, guys, is we like to go into the lion's den. That's where this battle is won. I like to go and confront people like Virginia Fox, North Carolina, Republican, long time, good old boy. She's not a boy. But she's been fighting tooth and nail bitterly for the lending system over her own people for decades. Those are the people I like to be confronting. We can preach to the choir all day long, and we'll see pretty much what we've seen up to this point, which is nothing and a bunch of happy, friendly talk. This problem gets solved when we can convince a few Republican governors like Brian Kemp of Georgia, like Greg Abbott in Texas, like H.R. McMaster in South Carolina, like Chris Sununu in New Hampshire, like Kristi Neem in South Dakota. The governors of the states, Bill Lee, Tennessee, these conservative Republican governors in states where student loan debt exceeds their entire state budgets. Those people need to forget everything they thought they knew about student loans and fight for their people over this big government lending monstrosity, which is robbing their state of untold $1 billion in wealth every year. If we can get through to even a couple of Republican governors, Republican senators and congressmen as well, that's absolutely true. It's very important for our bankruptcy bill. But I really think, guys, that the magic path out of this, where we could see student loans vanish almost overnight, would be when we can get even one or two Republican governors to stand up and do the right thing. But yeah, S2598 is key, guys. It's a great bill. It's only for federal loans. It's not a perfect bill, but it's a great bill. It's only for federal loans. There's a 10-year waiting period, which isn't great. But this bill has got the juice, guys. It does. Senator Durbin, he's the prime sponsor. He's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. And that bill, he has gotten 2 Republicans to co-sponsor under that bill. So the bill has got the votes right now to be passed, not only through committee, but theoretically even through a full congressional vote. So yeah, very important. So maybe the last thing I'll say tonight, 2 last things. I'm just going to repeat what I said at the top. Go to our website. Please do, let's say, a month worth of our daily actions. You can do them quickly, like in probably less than 20 minutes. You could do a full month worth of our daily actions. Usually requires nothing more than Twitter. And the very last thing I'll say is, if you can donate, please do it. We survive and thrive on very little funding. We need to raise, I think $225 right now so that we can afford to pay for our larger email list. So we can do what we do on very, very little, but we can't do it on nothing. So go to our website, throw something in, and that would be super helpful. But check back frequently, guys. The sausage, I swear to you, the sausage is being made right now as we speak. We had Richard Cordray last week saying that they are working on something regarding bankruptcy. And I don't want to say more than that, but that bodes extremely well for us. And the harder everyone fights right now and for like literally the next 2 or 3 weeks could be make or break. So, all right, guys. Well, with that, I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to wish everybody a good night. Please do those things. We can't win this without you. These are your loans. This is your problem. So good luck. Keep us posted as to your accomplishments. Tina, good to see you, Tina Rocket. Let's make these next couple weeks really count, folks. A lot is riding on it. So good luck. Godspeed. I'll see you on Friday. I'll see you on Thursday. God bless everybody.